So there was a video out there that two black men did, in which I like to make my own little response to it. Black men need to face reality. The original one was made by LAR Movement, and the response one was made by a lesser known YouTuber named Rango TV Raw. Now, for the most part, well, not even for the most part, I have respect for both of these men, for their opinions. Granted, in the case of LAR Movement, he definitely was on the side of no matter what you do, you're still a nigger. Doesn't matter. So why try? Which is what I got from that. As far as Rango T. Raw's response, overall I agree with his message more on face to reality. But granted, he took it from a very, I'll just say, Hebrew Israelite perspective. Now, my response is going to be more of a secular perspective, and which won't imply a lot of religion, nor biasness, nor victimhood. But we do have to admit this: black men, you need to face reality. The reality is that people don't like you. People don't like us. Not because of the color of our skin. It's because of the content of our character. A lot of people will say that, well, even during our best period, we were still hated and we were hunted down even more. So that's a reason to basically act like savages and buffoons and stereotypes and prove everyone who hated us from the start right? Is that the reason? Is that an excuse? And alongside that, you must not know your history about the world. If the world hated us so much, why was it that during history, blacks who actually fought for their freedom, meaning fighting for the British during the Revolutionary War and in 1812, why were they able to attain some sort of freedom, whether it was going to Africa, somewhere in Africa, or to other places, British colonies like Canada, the UK itself, whatever. If black people were hated as much, how was it that after the war, particularly World War II, certain blacks who fought in the American army decided, no, I'm good. I did my job. I did all I needed to do for America, and I know what's back there, which is nothing for me, at best. They decided to stay in places like Britain, like Germany, get married to the locals, to the dismay of a lot of a certain group of females, and have biracial children, and easily them and especially their children be able to assimilate to what country they settled in. Why was it that other individuals, such as athletes, entertainers, or just people of the higher class, blacks of the higher class, were able to leave this country and relocate permanently in some cases to other nations like that? Versus now, I mean, if you're talking about a mass group of blacks going somewhere else, blacks, particularly blacks of the ilk that we have right now, would you really want that? Now, if the blacks had the reputation that we had in the 60s and prior, and the same BS was still going on, would you not think that the world wouldn't capitalize on that? Even if only just to embarrass the United States and to say, hey, look, you're supposed to be the land of freedom and democracy, but you're terrorizing your own. However, we're willing to take in these hard-working, industrious group of people whose color might be darker than our native people. Would you not think the USSR, would you not think the European Union countries, some of the Asian countries, some of the African countries, some of the Latin countries, would you think they wouldn't take advantage of that? Especially if they wanted to show that they were a rising superpower, Would you not think they will they wouldn't want to take people, black people who are hardworking, industrious, at the least, and smart and intelligent at the best, at the most? How did you think the Jews were able to survive Nazi Germany? How would you think the Jews were able to disperse around the world? They were at the top. They were the smartest and the brightest group of people. And they were still targeted. Yes, that is true. And some of them, unfortunately, had an untimely and undeserving demise. But as far as those who survived, they ended up thriving. And we all know how that goes. We all know the rest of that story. But black men need to face the reality. The reality is that a lot of you are where you are today mainly because of conformity. It's because you felt as if in order to be considered black enough, in order to be considered part of the community, and to fit in and to have some sort of social life and sex life, you had to dumb down yourselves. You had to play the rules, play the politics of the street, play dumb. And yes, it earned you some friends, in some cases some loyal friends. It got you some play, in some cases by some fine women. But in many cases, if you really look back, how many of those people who were down with you when you were getting down and dirty, keeping it real, keeping it 100, how many of them are rocking with you today? Also, the women you messed around with, how many of them were worth a damn? And in a lot of you guys' cases, how many of them were even good looking? I mean, let's be honest. A lot of you all who played street politics and keeping it real and keeping it 100 and man, I got swag, man. Nah, me, man. Nah, 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 nah. Exactly. How many of them were even good looking? And the ones who were good looking, how many of them ran through already before she gave you a piece? Or rather, should I say, she gave you a morsel of what was between her legs. Because you conform. You were a good Negro. You played to the stereotype. Good on you for speaking broken English and skipping out on class and clowning the guys who actually went to school and graduated. How many of you guys fell into the freaking trap? You want to talk about reality? Let's talk about reality. How many of you all in reality are just a bunch of conformist wussies? You see, I'm trying to keep this at the most PG-13 because I could have said something else in place of wussy, which would be more accurate. How many of you guys out there did what you did in order to not get beaten up, or at least not get beaten up as much, in order to avoid confrontation, in order to, I don't know, in order to be invited to the barbecue cookouts, and your siblings and your cousins' birthday parties, and whatever you guys do, in order to have that spot, that precious, sacred spot in the club, and not even at the VIP section at that. How many of you guys conform? Face the reality, black men. A lot of you guys did what you did in order to fit in. And I'm not saying I'm better because I didn't, but I am. I'm not the best, but I'm better than the rest. And I don't say this lightly. because I suffered a lot from not fitting in. I know it's a long road. It's a sacrifice for not being dumb, for acting like you have a triple digit IQ. I know that. But what I also know is that the reality is that a lot of you didn't have what it takes or what it took. Nor don't have what it takes. Present tense. In order to be your own man. In order to stand on your own 2 feet. And then you bitch and you whine and you moan about how black women don't respect you. Despite me being a swag, you know what, and a homo thug, and conforming, and tricking, and flossing, and playing out the stereotypes, black women still don't respect me. Well, that's because half of you went half. You went half thug. You went half street. A lot of you were posers, and a lot of women even saw through that. Which you can say what you want about black women. Dumb isn't one of them. At least not as dumb as they're portrayed in television. Granted, they aren't smart. Not by any means. But they aren't as dumb as you guys may think. But let's face the reality. The reality is that a lot of you guys out there who expect to be treated like a man, and I'm a man, I'm a manly man. Girls don't respect me, but I'm still a man. I'm a black man. I guess this can be applied to all races at this point, but especially as a black man. What is there to respect? Not because of the color of your skin, but because, back to my recent video, what have you done lately? Which I've emphasized on that. Or I really went in. And to be fair, what is there to respect? Instead of... what is there to respect outside of just your physical prowess? Okay, great. You have more muscles than the average man. Well, that in many cases is because a lot of you have more idle time than the average man. And in some cases, it's because a lot of us end up being in unfavorable circumstances, which puts us in a certain kind of solitary confinement more often than the average man. And let me emphasize on that. The reality is that a lot of you guys out there who find yourselves looking up at a police officer or looking up at a judge or looking on the wrong side of bars, cold bars, not the cool kind of bars which you drink, but the reason why, the reality is because a lot of you guys can't be your own man. A lot of you guys, for some reason, you can't be your own man or refuse to be your own man because, let's face the reality, a lot of people say, well, black men are being targeted and 1 out of every 3 men are going to get beaten by a police officer and 1 out of every 6 are going to end up getting shot at while running for their lives. And 1 out of every 9 black men are going to get 360 no-scope by a cop right before they fall into a cliff, and that cliff being 6 feet under the jail, and blah, 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 blah. Look, a lot of this shit is self-inflicted. That's the reality. I'm not saying everybody of every race is, or every other race, are angels. No. And are there cases which black men are targeted more than non-black races due to certain people in the system who basically get off and get a boner and wake up in order to take out black men, black masculinity? Yeah, there are. There are people who are like that. But what have you done to make them look dumb? What have you done to discredit them? What have you done in order to make them look like the racists that they actually are. What have you done? You haven't improved your reputation. When someone says improve your reputation, it's like, oh, you're a coon. You're a coon. You acting white. You sound white. You must be white. You white man, though. Using all those phrases and those ninth grade words and using sentence structure and syntax correctly and using subject verb agreement and saying there instead of they and are and say is. Use white men though. Yeah, keep thinking that. And that's the reality. And that's the reason why people don't want to be around you. Ask those same people who are old enough how blacks were back then versus how blacks are now, and they will give you the honest answer. Some of the oldest people, particularly non-white minorities, non-black minorities, I should say. A lot of them remember a time when blacks had dignity, blacks had respect, blacks were worthy of respect, and they wouldn't mind having their daughters date black men. Yeah, you have this recent class of people who come in or who moved in and want to play the American assimilation game of hating blacks in order to impress whites. Oh yeah, but a part of the reason is because the reality is that a lot of you guys give them a reason to do so. And it's through your continual ignorance, your continual just shucking and jiving and not I don't want to say not getting a code because the Hoteps have hijacked that term, but a lot of us do need a code. A stringent code at that. Now is not the time to shuck and jive and have some hood swag and be about that life and do that, because a lot of it, when you think about it, it was to impress a group of women who, in the end, don't respect you anyway. Despite all that clubbing, that tricking, that fronting, that swagging, that gaming, they don't care for you anyway. And that's part of the reason why I don't even pander to a certain group of women, because first of all, I never conformed to that stuff, and I paid the price. Those hood rats made me pay the price. I will admit to that. I will raise my hand to that. But alongside that, for me, I knew what they were about, and a lot of them weren't about crap. And I think a lot of you guys need to realize what the reality is in this case. A lot of what you've done in order to defend and keep up with and maintain blackness, a lot of it's a ruse. A lot of it is a farce. A lot of it was basically to make sure you were in good standing with a deprived, decrepit, and yes, as Wrangle TV Raw says, a wicked culture. So the reality is that a lot of you all do a lot of the things you do and get caught up in the things you deal with, even if it isn't criminal based. Perfect example, baby mama trauma. Looking at the barrel end of child support, or as I said, any sort of drama when it comes to women or females, getting caught up. A lot of that was basically because a lot of you wanted to fit into the American Negro society. And we all know what kind of society the American Negro society is. But a lot of you didn't have the guts to stand on your own. And as a result, you're digging yourselves out of holes. How deep it is, depending on how much of a conformist wussy you were back in the day. So that's the reality of things. It's not too late. Even if you have been caught up in the system of child support or even the federal system, it's not too late. Especially for you guys who are young, in your teens and 20s, it's definitely not too late. I hope this message reaches you guys first. Well, not first, I should say, but I hope this reaches you guys the hardest. Because what you're seeing in school, it's just a mirage. It's a plastic society. It is faker than GMO Monsanto based foods. But once you get out to the real world, you'll start seeing a lot of those people who are currently on top start to be exposed. And then you will know what the reality is for black men, or just the reality in general. Everyone else out there, always bet on X.